if you hear something that does not align 100% with the position that you're taking, that person then is on the other side.
Absolutely.
There's no more pragmatism. It's always black or white. Welcome back to Lawish. Today, we have an update on...
Breaking news.
An update on the Mar-a-Lago, essentially. Yeah. You know, if you have not been following the whole Mar-a-Lago saga, it all started with not a raid, but essentially the execution of a warrant.
Unjustified raid.
The execution of a warrant that the FBI did on Mar-a-Lago, former President Trump's residence, where they found a bunch of documents that he had taken from the White House when he left office. We didn't do anything. the FBI.
I was there.
Yeah.
On the ground.
Jeff was the one that signed over the documents to the FBI. So we talked about this, a couple episodes ago, and the latest updates were that Judge Aileen Cannon, it's a district judge in Florida, she had granted Trump's request to essentially appoint a special master. The special master, at risk of oversimplifying things, is just a independent third party that was supposed to review the documents and see whether there were any documents that were privileged and that the FBI or the government should not be able to review as part of a criminal investigation. Yeah. That's essentially the TLDR version. The government was saying, hey, there's no need for special master. We already have a way to review this. We're gonna, we'll return whatever is not relevant. But we should be able to continue reviewing the documents because there's an investigation and this is time sensitive. And Judge Cannon said, no, you shouldn't do it. I don't trust that the government will do this correctly. This is unprecedented. The circumstances are warrant, a delicate handling of it all. And Trump, of course, wanted this appointment because that would essentially just slow down and buy him some time.
Well, to the FBI's credit, in the government, they are special agents, so they're kind of like special masters.
Well, they're special agents, yeah.
They haven't got that notch on their belt
They just don't have the master yet. They are already special enough.
They're still in
the last time that we talked about this, the special master request had been granted by Judge Cannon, and that it was interesting because both sides of the aisle were shocked. This was even before the midterm, so the whole presumption was that there was going to be a red wave. And then by the time that the administration changes, then we can just halt all investigations and it's all is done.
Yeah.
So in the end, Trump's legal team...
Just buying time.
Yeah, Trump's legal team's strategy was to buy time. So just kind of kick the can down the road.
That's always been Trump's strategy.
Yeah, exactly. And that's happened even when he was a private citizen and he had, civil lawsuits. That would be the case. So this case was not the exception. Then the last time, like I said, this happened. And both sides were like... It's weird, it's shocking. The right didn't think it was going to happen. The left didn't want it to happen. Yeah. It happened. Deal with it. But the government decided to appeal that because they were like, there's no reason for us to do this. They tried to also...
and that was a consideration too, because it was like if they appeal, it could drag it out even longer.
Exactly.
Maybe we'll just go through with it, hopefully expedite it, get past this. But then it sets a precedent that this is okay.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, they did kind of go along with, and because Judge Cannon had said, you both have to cooperate with what Special Master says and get together and choose one. Because essentially, this is not supposed to be a Special Master chosen by one side or the other. It's supposed to be one that both parties agree to.
Which makes sense, I
guess. Yeah, exactly. It's like an arbitrator, right?
Yeah, it's supposed to be unbiased, and if one side picks it,
But at the same time, the government decided to appeal. And the 11th Circuit heard that recently, which is why we're talking about it right now. Not only did they hear it, they issued an order overturning Judge Cannon's decision. And that wouldn't be news, really. But their order was like so scathing on Judge Cannon's decision, where it was equivalent to, what were you thinking? Like, what's going on? A lot of times you have, and for those of us that have read appellate decisions and the rationale and going through the legal concepts, there's a lot of deference given by appellate courts to district courts decisions, because the district courts are usually the ones that get all the facts. They get the actual arguments from both sides. They do all the discovery and all that, and they review that. So the appellate courts are usually hesitant to say they didn't review the facts correctly, right?
Because they only get what's on the record.
Exactly.
There's only a portion of what happens.
So but then sometimes you have de novo reviews, which just means essentially, all right, we're gonna do what the district court did, and we're gonna review it all together, and not just a review of the sound reasoning of the judge. Well, in this case, not even the sound reasoning was good because that's what they were reviewing, and they said this has no leg to stand on. So that just happened, and immediately after, I think maybe about a week went by since that decision from the appellate court, and just this week, Judge Cannon essentially dismissed the lawsuit in her court by claiming it was lacking jurisdiction, which was essentially what the appellate court was saying, and that automatically drops everything else that was in play in her court, which one of those things was Trump also wanted, or Trump's team, they wanted an unredacted copy of the affidavit that led to the warrant. And for those of you that don't know, an affidavit is going to be something sworn, right, obviously, but that could include information of people who are collaborating with the government, and that includes personal information and the contact information of people. So essentially what Trump wanted is like, give me your source so I can go and plug the holes in the ship. And the government was understandably were like, well, no, this is a confidential informant, essentially.
Yes. And if you did that, what is that going to say? Nobody's
ever going to want to cooperate.
Again.
Exactly, if you are at risk of being exposed. So with the dismissal of the case by Judge Cannon, that petition also drops. Yeah. Now the appellate court gave Trump a week to decide whether he wanted to appeal it to the Supreme Court as well. Trump decided not to. My suspicion is that he decided not to do it, or his team decided not to do it, because I think it was maybe like last month or within last month, the Supreme Court had also declined to hear a petition for something tangentially related to the case. It was also a decision by the 11th Circuit. So in their mind, I'm assuming there was something like, it's not even worth it, right? So that's where we are right now.
And they've been, and that's why, because he went on that tweeting rampage where he was like, "Oh, the Supreme Court's a political hack," even though he appointed,
he appointed like the last 3 justices.
Yeah, and everybody was like, because they didn't rule in his favor, or they didn't hear the case, and it's like, dude, like, it's just, that's what shows how ridiculous he is.
Yeah,
right. Like, anytime you don't get your way, it doesn't matter how ridiculous your argument is. You cry foul. There's corruption. So you put these people in place. They have no reason to not do if follow whatever the law is, because they can't be impeached anyway. Like, they have every reason to support you if you had a legal argument that was actually valid, but they didn't for a reason.
You got to give them something to work with, right?
Yes.
Don't get us wrong. There's always political forces acting behind even federal courts, and we talked about this in our recent episode for the blind ambition.
Yeah.
Right. So there is always some political bias intrinsically, because you are a human being, you have your own thoughts, and that can come in. But the way you do this is by having a legal sound reasoning underneath it.
To justify,
exactly,
or give you an opportunity to roll in whatever way.
To essentially save face.
Yes.
If you want to rule in this way, you got to have at least some sound reasoning to do it that way. And what you do is you would expect that the party that is coming into your court that you side with can set up the table for you to then make that determination. The problem here is Judge Cannon went the other way around, and she try to fish for something that would make her legal reasoning stand. There was no such thing in the allegations or in the facts. So the appellate court was left with no recourse but say, this is crazy, this is ludicrous, this doesn't work.
Yeah, and it's at the base level of it. You look at it, it's like they got a search warrant that was obviously signed by a judge. So there was probable cause presented to the judge. The judge believed there was probable cause, signed off on the search warrant. They found a bunch of documents that weren't turned over to the archives. There was numerous requests for those to be turned over. They were told everything had been turned over by Trump and his attorneys. Like, what are you talking about? And then there's this whole argument of, I declassified it, or whatever. It's personal stuff. But then they're arguing both on that, and they won't commit to either. It's like so.
And the funny thing was,
it's a joke.
So we backtrack a little bit when the special master was appointed and he started doing. This was a judge, a semi-retired judge from Brooklyn, and he starts reviewing this stuff. He asks Trump's team, "Hey, okay, so I need you to clarify: did you or did you not declassify the documents? Right? Because that's going to affect how I go reviewing these documents."
Absolutely.
And Trump's team was like, "Well, we can say." We can say we shouldn't be forced. That was, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was
right?
we shouldn't be forced to expose any declassification defenses that we might bring up if Trump is charged. Because right now it's worth noting that he hasn't been charged yet. The government is doing this investigation because they found all this, right? And this is all discovery before deciding to move forward with charges. So they were saying, no, we can say, but the whole time you've been saying, I declassified him with some magic wave or whatever. So then the
He's
special,
putting this all over the internet,
The special master was like, well, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Like, that's not how this works.
We heard how many arguments? It was, there weren't documents there. Then if there were documents, they were planted by the FBI.
Yeah.
Then if there were documents somehow that weren't planted by the FBI, they were unclassified. But he didn't say they weren't planted by the FBI. He still said they were planted by the FBI, but then they were unclassified. They weren't classified. It's like, what do we, like, your shit contradicts itself directly, your own arguments, right? And then his attorneys don't want to support any of it. It's like,
and then you have the argument that they had about, oh, no, we didn't, or whatever. We turned everything in. We turned everything over. And then I heard recently there was a discussion about this, and apparently the lawyer was smart, and she was like, well, yeah, I'm saying this is all that we have, as far as I've been informed. Right? So there's a caveat right there.
Of course.
Which any lawyer worth his or her salt would do that.
For sure.
Because, like, no.
Yeah, save your own ass.
Especially when, let's be honest, everybody knows, and by everybody I mean everybody in the legal community in the country knows Trump.
Yeah.
And you may commune with his policy, whether you do it or you don't, but if you do, that's fine. But even then, you're not gonna put everything on the line for him, right?
No, I don't think anybody would trust him in any capacity, like with their own.
Except Giuliani,
stuff.
but he's been burned so many. He's been burned so many times that he doesn't care at this point. Yeah.
Even if you support him, I think everybody at that point, you don't trust them. But
the thing is that with trust but verify kind of concept, like they may say we love Trump and we think his policies are the way to go, and that's perfectly fine. That's your prerogative. But if you're worth your salt, you're not gonna put it on the line just for him. Which is why there was this caveat. But then the funny thing about this is, well, it turns out then they go look into this storage locker. Then they found a couple other ones.
Surprise! Turns out it wasn't more. Everything.
Yeah. So it was just a complete shit show. Yeah. In the end, obviously, this was dropped. And one interesting thing, speaking about the precedent that you were talking about earlier today, I just have here the quote from the 11th Circuit where they said, "The law is clear. We cannot write a rule that allows any subject of a search warrant to block government investigations after the execution of the warrant, nor can we write a rule that allows only former presidents to do so," which is kind of what they were trying to argue. Well, this is special because this is a former president and personal documents and whatnot.
Because then it comes in the argument of, like, first of all, it's not even, like, nobody should be above the law argument.
Exactly.
Right? And this is even a president. This is a former president who's now a citizen. So it's like, it comes to that argument, why is this person special? Now, like, what law would apply to them specifically that protects them? But also, if you could, anytime you're being investigated, could significantly delay that investigation. We talk about the justice system already being significantly delayed, but also how timely a lot of this stuff is. And how important it is that they get it in a timely manner, because who knows what the hell's going to happen to it in the meantime.
Exactly.
Especially when it's shit like this that they're looking for, because you've been tipped off now that you have a search warrant.
So it was just like a complete disaster.
And of note, believe 3 of the judges were Republican, right? So this isn't
it was a panel of 3 judges. All 3 were Republican. One was appointed by George W. Bush, and the other 2 were appointed by Trump.
Yeah. So it's like, this is not a political thing.
Yeah, it's not political. I believe if they had been given a good legal foundation, they could have been like, okay, you know what? There's enough deference that we can then give to
100%.
the district judge and just go with it.
Yeah.
And the government was obviously prepared to do that because they were like, well, you know what? You're not supposed to be politicized, but most likely you are. So let's still shoot the shot.
The sad thing is, though, if this were you know, if these were Democratic judges, you had 3 Democrats on the bench. I mean, imagine, right? It'd be like, oh, it's because they're Democrats. This is a political witch hunt. You know, it's like, no, you just didn't have a fucking good legal argument. You had no legal argument. Right?
Exactly.
The one you had contradicted itself throughout the entire thing.
And it was evident Cannon was biased. Like she was literally trying to get something, like throw Trump's legal team a bone. There were mainly like 2 reasons. One, she appointed the guy that Trump wanted from Brooklyn, right? One of the 2 that they wanted. And again, that's not too bad because it's supposed to be agreed by both parties. Yeah. So she could not just unilaterally say that, but obviously that was kind of a little bit of a win for Trump. That's perfectly fine. That is fair. Mm-hmm. But then she was inserting herself into the whole process. It's not something you're supposed to do because the special master was going to be the one reviewing and saying, well, we think this is privilege, we think this is not.
Literally the point of the person, right?
But then, exactly, they were doing their job. But then Cannon was going to be the ultimate decider of whether the special master did the right job. Yeah. Then at that point, you are no longer disinterested. You're almost making an argument for one of the parties, and you're not supposed to do that. Exactly. That was one thing. The second thing is,
it'd be like a judge imagine you have a jury trial. The judge is there overseeing the jury trial, and they're like not guilty. And the judge's like, you know what? I think they did it. Sorry, man.
Exactly.
You know, fuck you, jury.
As easy as that, it's like, oh, you know what? No, I think this guy's got it wrong. Guilty. Like that's. I mean, we're obviously oversimplifying, but. That was the first point. The second point of showing that Judge Cannon was not even like subtly partial was that I don't know exactly how this happened, but apparently one of the filings from the proceedings was posted on the public docket on the court's website, and that was supposed to be sealed. And in that one, Judge Cannon was talking about how she believed the government had gone through the right processes to determine, you know, essentially parse out what is privilege, what is not, what is even relevant to the investigation and what is not. So she had admitted to that in this filing that got leaked by their own team, and
which might have very well been intentional.
Exactly. But it might have been one of her clerks, you know. So that's it. It's posted on the docket. It's not sent to like a reporter or anything. So that got leaked. But then in public, she kept expressing distrust that the government would be able would have the ability to do this impartially.
I think for me, it's just it's insane because I know there's a ton of just super far right people or super MAGA people, whatever, that are like still think this is whatever. It's like, look, the special master was appointed, chosen by Trump's team or whatever, agreed upon by the government, whatever. He was like. You can't argue. Like, you got to choose and argue. Like, you can't argue both ways. Like, come on, what's going on? Because I can't make a decision unless it's going on. Basically, called him out on their BS, right? These 3 Republican judges, some of which were appointed by Trump himself, are also like, this is bullshit. This is ridiculous. You know, it's like this isn't a political thing. Yeah. This is a Trump thing. And the fact that this is classic Trump. Like, these aren't, and classic Trump attorneys. These just aren't fucking, like, these aren't legally sound arguments.
And the thing is that you can always, in a court of law, you can always argue, in the alternative.
Sure.
Said, like, I didn't do it, but if I did it, X, Y, Z.
Happens all the time in trial.
But, it happens all the time, and it's perfectly acceptable. It's legal. Yeah. But the problem here is like none of those things in the alternative that you're arguing like make any sense. Like any of them on their own wouldn't help you. Like they're still bad arguments.
Yeah, and it's like, and for this pre-trial kind of decision, you need to make a fucking argument for that actual ruling. It's not later on at trial. Yeah, it would be important for that, but this is like key to this judge making this decision. Like you can't. It's like going into like a motion to suppress hearing and like, did you get the discovery? Well, I can't tell you that. I don't know because that might hurt me. Like that's the whole point. The whole motion, the whole hearing is for that. You got to give the judge something to work with.
It reminds me of that episode of The Office where they are trying to hire like a replacement for Michael Scott. Yeah. And then there's this guy that comes in to interview and he's like, I have a 3-step plan to like make this like I don't remember like to make it like the best office ever, and they're like, okay, what is it? And then there's like, I can't tell you. So like he goes, they're like, I'll give you step number 2 of the 3-step plan, so that I still have something. So hire me, and then I'll do it. It's kind of like
okay. That's kind of how this shit is for real. Though. It's like, and it just blows my mind. But that's how political and divisive and everything is right now. Like there's a decent portion, 10-15% of the Americans who think this is still a political witch hunt. That ruling was probably they were really rhinos, not really
Yeah.
Republicans or
Yeah.
whatever. And it's just like nobody actually can like get their head out of their ass and like look at or make an actual, let me look at this. Let me see what's going on. Does this make sense? Because nobody trusts anything anymore.
Yeah.
And that's what's so, I think, scary about where we are as a country right now. Like,
And
nobody believes
that
anything.
happens on both sides.
Yeah,
This is not an
yeah.
argument against the
100%.
right. It happens on both sides where if you hear something that does not align 100% with the position that you're taking,
Yeah.
that person then is on the other side.
Absolutely. It's us versus them. They're wrong.
Exactly.
Or whatever.
It's always like that. There's no more pragmatism, nothing. It's always black or white.
Well, look at the whole Russian hostage situation. It's no longer like, oh, we got an American freed.
It's like how do you, that is just one thing that I think is funny on the far right, because remember what happened with Ukraine as well. Russia invades Ukraine.
Yeah.
Nobody could have
It's
said,
very
"Oh,
clear
Russia should." Yeah, they're good guys. They should be
Yeah.
doing that. No, they're invading another fucking country.
It's
Dude.
very clear Ukraine did nothing to be invaded.
But because the left was supporting
Yeah.
Ukraine,
Yes.
the right was like, "Fuck, we don't want to support Ukraine because that means we're gonna side with these
Exactly.
guys, even though
Exactly.
that's the right thing to do."
And it was like, look, it'll be a political, especially once there was economic impact. Then it was like, oh, we need to attack the Democrats because gas prices are crazy high. Because,
But that means you gotta side with
inflation.
fucking Russia.
Yeah, exactly. And they're willing to do that over, the alternative. And it's like, that's how sad shit is right
Yeah,
now.
and to your point,
It's
about
sad.
Griner,
Yeah.
you got an American citizen
Yeah.
that everybody can agree the
Did nothing.
sentence. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
one did nothing. The sentence was like disproportionate to the crime because obviously that what they wanted to use it as a bargaining
Absolutely.
chip.
Like, why are we attacking her for doing something that is seemingly innocent, and then this happens instead of being like, "Oh fuck Russia! Like they took an American, we should care about it." It's she kneeled for the flag and the national anthem. She needs to be hung. It's like, what are we talking about?
Yeah, that goes against any reasonable person's sense of patriotism.
Yes.
Even within that, us versus them as a country is like the U.S. versus everybody else. But then when you go into a subdivision, then you're no longer patriotic.
No.
You're just annoyed at whatever the other person, like, whether it's race or bias against women, against LGBTQ
Yeah.
plus
Somebody to
community.
blame your own issues in your life on.
Yeah,
basically.
and then you're disguising those under a cloak of patriotism.
For sure.
That's not patriotism.
And the reality is, like, even if you don't agree with what she's protesting, which is fine, it's completely right, just like it's her right to protest.
Yeah.
The act of protesting is patriotic. So it's not like she's saying like burn down America or
Right.
F the US. It's I want to see it do better. This isn't how things should be. I believe we can do better. I'm going to protest because I'm not okay with how things are. And for some reason, people like lost sight of that. Like that is literally exercising the constitutional rights, which is as American as you can get.
Exactly.
But it became like now we're like Russia, where it's like if you talk bad about anything going on in the U.S., get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
You're not an American.
Exactly.
You're treasonous, traitor.
Think of it as a football team. So you can have people within the team that don't like each other, but when they're out there in the field, they're playing against the other team. They don't play against themselves.
Yeah.
And that's what this is. This is no longer patriotism. It's just you using any excuse you can find to express your disagreement with that other person for whatever reason you have.
Can't agree on anything anymore. Even that which nobody should be in disagreement with has now become political. And it's anyway, our country's messed up. But it's a whole side tangent, I guess. But it goes into this just to show like that is the reality. Even this, when you have 3 Republicans rolling against it, you had the appointed special counsel, special master rolling against it. There's still going to be people who are like, this is a political witch hunt. These are all in cahoots with the Democrats, and it's just like. There's so much delusion on both sides.
Suddenly, I had forgotten how we got from this to patriotism and Russia, but now we know.
Tangent.
So we'll end the episode now because we're obviously gone longer than we wanted. But it was just a little bit of an update. Let us know if you have any questions. Jeff, parting words?
No. I think I'm going to go to Russia, and if I don't make it back. Next trade's for me, okay?
Yeah.
I knew the Marines been waiting, but
we'll get you in line.
I did not sign up for this.
All right. Well, thank you again for joining us. Yeah. We'll see you next time. This was Losh.